Amelia,
Hello.
thank you very much for coming on to the Byte Archive podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you. I'm really looking forward to hearing about your song selections as well as a run through of your career so far. It's been really fascinating, admiring from a distance, and so I feel we're very lucky to now be sitting with you. So, to start with, you've described your childhood involved growing up around artists and learning life from an artist's perspective, mentioning that figures in your paintings are people you're intrigued by. Where did this eye for kind of stylish people stem from, and were there any major influences?
Um, I can't tell you where it came from because my mum just doesn't care about what she wears. And looks quite scruffy most of the time, but she is like quite elegant. But I've always been interested in antique clothing, and a lot of my family are antique dealers, so I feel like that probably has something to do with it.
Okay, wow, fascinating. Give you an eye for antiques as well, furniture. Was that ever something
Well,
you?
I'd like to think so, but I think my mum would argue against that. We have quite different styles.
Right, okay. Do you feel like that rubs off in your art at all? That sort of eye for an antique kind of vintage look?
Probably, yeah, because when I'm dressing someone for a shoot, I tend to put them in, um, yeah, antique clothing or
Right.
just vintage clothing, really.
Wow.
I don't really like trendy too, yeah, anything
Trend,
too
yeah.
trendy, yeah.
You don't do you buy new stuff ever? No, neither do I actually. eBay is the is a
Yeah, it is.
um and is there a song that reminds you of this period or the early stage of your life?
Well, the song that kind of reminds me of my mum and I's relationship, like since I was a child, is "Close to Me" by The Cure.
Close to Me by The Cure. Is that because it was playing in the house?
Yeah, we'd just be like dancing around to it together. Um,
Wow.
Quite, yeah, it just like we keep revisiting it. It's like
Yeah.
our kind of song.
That it encapsulates a memory.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so, skipping ahead slightly, but you've spent most of your time in London, but also in Florence, and your work has been described as an ode to both cities. Which do you prefer, or was that can you answer that in that?
Definitely London.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like born and bred London, but I had to leave for me to realize how much I loved it. I felt like before it felt quite claustrophobic.
Okay.
And then when I went to Florence, I just realized how much London has to, yeah, to see so many museums.
Hmm.
And also when I was in Florence, all the teachers would be like talking about London like it was the best place ever. So I was kind of thinking, why have I come here if I was from there?
The so this is the kind of the lecturers and the teachers, and they were Italian,
They were Italian,
and they
yeah.
were speaking how great London
Yeah.
is. Was it because I'm assuming because of obviously the arts and, as you say, the museums? Was there anything deeper than that, like culturally, I guess? Or?
Yeah, I just remember one of our lessons was purely about London. And
You think I just left?
I know two of us came from London to Florence and we met after that and we were like, what the fuck was that about?
We've come all the way here.
Yeah.
There is quite a deep appreciation for sort of the aesthetics um, and art within Florence. Did you find that as well?
Yes. So I moved from a fashion uni there to a drawing atelier, and that I learned a lot about history of art there. And
Okay, yeah.
of course, you've got the Uffizi there, and some amazing art is out in Florence. So it felt like such a privilege to just be able to go and see those works whenever you wanted.
Is there a track that captures either Florence or London? Or both?
Yes. So during that time, I came back from Florence and I was at a dinner party with my friend Nell, who I've done a painting of. And she introduced me to this song called Mother Nature's Bitch by OK Kaya. And it's so good, and I've listened to it ever since.
And that reminds you of Florence, sorry, or that's more
Just
London.
that time when I was like coming back and forth. Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm gonna have to listen to it.
It's so good. Yeah.
Awesome. Correct me if I'm wrong, but art school has a reputation of, or possibly a natural rebelliousness surrounding it. Were you a top student, or did you enjoy bending the rules?
I feel like my rebellious time was when I was like 13 to 16. And then I don't know, I moved back to London and I wasn't the top student at first, but I was doing what I loved, like I was studying art. So because I spent all my time in the art block, I probably did become like teacher's pet at the end.
All right, so there was a kind of as you grew to appreciate and love what you were doing more. Actually, you found
Yeah, I feel like there's nothing to rebel from when you're doing what you love.
that's really interesting. Can you unpack that?
Well, I was at a school in the countryside before, and I hated it and I hated where I was. So I just did anything to get me like kicked out of that.
Kicked out.
Well, it led to that, but
I'm not going to ask what you did, but so, yeah. And were you painting and sort of exploring art as much during that period, or?
I was, and it was definitely my favorite subject then as well. But I wasn't doing it enough. I was too focused on boys and other things.
I suppose what kind of art were you into at that time? I'm really intrigued to know what was kind of what got you going and
I think what I didn't like was the briefs were so strict. I don't know if you had that as well.
definitely.
Like it would be underwater animals or things like that, and that wasn't really my calling. So yeah.
I'm seeing a lack of underwater
Yeah.
animals.
I don't think I'll be painting underwater animals again.
Right. But you felt like you were sort of constricted to that brief.
Definitely.
Yeah, I can definitely relate.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's maybe a rebelliousness in itself.
Yeah, it never made me not like art, but I just thought, I kind of doubted myself and I was like, maybe I'm not as good as I think, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess as you became older, how did what you were looking at change or your influences? Did you develop more of an eye for figure or had, you know?
Yeah, well, so I moved to Hampstead Fine Arts, and
Mhm.
they always give you a brief, but one of the briefs was personal investigation, so you could just do whatever you wanted. And that was the first time I felt like I was allowed to explore like figuration, because before the briefs were just too strict to do that, and I felt like it was never about figures. So that was when I did a lot of life drawing, and they taught me how to oil paint there as well.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and so I remember one of my teachers was like, the way you see colour is fucking amazing. And I just like, that gave me so much confidence.
Interesting. So whilst you were balancing, or at least learning from the life drawing and that sort of way of observing the human body, at the same time you had lecturers who kind of pushed you in all the right directions.
Yeah, they were incredible. They were working artists, which definitely makes a difference. But they were, yeah, I mean, one of them, it did take a while for him to sort of, get on his good side. I felt like you had to prove yourself to him. But then it's such a reward after you do.
And sort of, and with that, you submitted your piece, "The Pink Man," which led to being chosen uh, in 2021 by the curator Yinka Shonibar and displayed in the summer exhibition at the Royal Academy, which led to exposure and a whole new world. Right? How did that all feel?
I burst into tears when I found out.
Wow.
Because I've been going to the RA summer exhibition since I was a child, and I kind of thought, it was as far as you could get in the art world, which is so naive, but it's just all I ever knew. It's all my mum and my granny spoke about, and they've been applying forever, and they've never got in, but hopefully they will one day. Um, yeah, I remember my ex-boyfriend on the sort of what do they call it? The varnishing day,
Right.
where all the artists go and see their painting hung. So he came along and he put on his story a photo of me in front of the painting with the caption like, "She's completed it," like literally completed the art world, because that's all.
That's all you knew at the time.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea where it was placed amongst the exhibition when you walked in, or?
No, that's kind of what I made a friend that day, and we were sort of like taking bets as to where we thought it would be hung in the room. Yeah.
How many paintings were there in total? Do you know roughly, or?
There's a lot.
Yeah, there are. I have been. There are a lot.
There's so many.
There are a lot. So I mean, just having a sort of slice of that is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for that, I mean, that literally started my career as an artist. So I feel so grateful for it.
And that gave you, I assume, kind of yeah, confidence going forward, seeing it there.
Yeah.
How much more motivated do you feel after seeing that? Was it kind of, this is?
Yeah, it was huge. I sat, you know how they have the benches like in the middle of the gallery?
Yeah, yeah.
So I sat there for hours just like watching people kind of talk about the paintings and obviously hope, yeah, I did that. But I'd approach them and be like, "What do you think of that?" And like, luckily nobody said anything bad about it. That would have crushed me quite a bit.
Were there any surprise or responses which kind of took you?
No, people, I put it as not for sale, and a lot of people were asking why, but only because it was my first oil painting, so I feel like I can't ever sell that one.
Are you? Yeah, I mean, just on a tangent, but is there a sentiment? I mean, obviously, there's a sentiment about that. In the wider context, are you quite sentimental about your paintings and life in general?
Yeah, I am, although I feel like it's better when you do a painting and then somebody buys it almost straight away, because you haven't built too much attachment to it. Whereas when it's in your studio for a while, I feel like you build a relationship with it.
Yeah.
And then when it sells, that's quite heartbreaking,
Is it?
because you know you're not really going to see it again.
It's always tricky, yeah, letting go of that, something you've committed so much time to. Is there a is there a song that motivates you or kind of brings a positive feeling, I guess?
Yes, Ashes to Ashes by David Bowie.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that because of its, I guess, of its sound, or because of a memory you have with it?
Yeah, I think I listen to music for their sound, like the way that it makes me feel. It's quite rare that I listen to I obviously listen to the lyrics, but I'm not thinking about what the lyrics mean. It's more about like how, like the beat of it.
Yes, yeah, and how it makes you feel,
Yeah.
and that rhythm, as opposed. No, I can definitely relate to that.
It's a good song for reflecting, sort of.
Is it?
Yeah. There's one part of it where like the beat changes, and then it's just a nice, yeah, I like to like think about things I've achieved, or
Yeah, yeah. No, I can completely get that. Just following on from your first exhibition, and I believe you were, how old were you at the time? Was it?
I was 19.
Wow.
I did the
19.
painting when I was 17, I think.
Over that 2 year period, did it take 2 years, sorry, or?
It took me a lot longer than the paintings take me now, only because I I didn't work on it as intensely. I kind of like kept coming back to it, but it probably took me 6 months.
Right.
Yeah, to finish it.
Wow.
It was left unfinished for quite a while.
And was that because of life got in the way, or?
Yeah, also because the part that was left was the floor, which was a sort of boring part to me, so I just left it there. But the thing is, I'd painted over a landscape that my mum had done, and my granny had done. So my granny started on that canvas. She painted something.
Okay.
She didn't like it, so she gave the canvas to my mum. My mum painted a landscape, and she didn't like it, so I painted over that. But I think it's quite nice because if you look closely, you can see all the sort of layers underneath.
There's generations in that painting.
Yeah, yeah. So it's technically we all did get into the summer exhibition.
You technically did. That's such a lovely way to, like you say, you can see the layers, but without hearing that, you wouldn't know, which is almost a wonderful little secret.
Yeah, I've got to give them some credit.
Absolutely. This this piece kind of this led to a few galleries pitching you for a solo show, which eventually you chose Roncini Gallery, I think, if I'm
Yes.
pronouncing that right. How did you decide, and did you have any advice for picking this gallery?
I did have advice from two art advisors, and they both told me not to do it.
Not to do it.
And I think looking back, I understand why, because I was very young, although I didn't feel young at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I get it because being introduced into the art world, I'd had no shows before, I'd never sold a painting before, and I go from selling nothing to my first painting selling for like £7,000 was a big leap.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was quite good though, because I'm quite driven, so when somebody gives me like a big thing to achieve, like something to work towards,
Mm-hmm.
I did it. I made like 10 huge paintings for them, which I wouldn't have done unless they'd given me that
Mm-hmm.
deadline.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm so glad I did it, obviously.
Pressure makes diamonds, right? And what period was those 10 paintings painted over?
So it it was a bit difficult because I was still in Florence at the time.
Oh, right.
And studying, yeah. So I was doing these paintings on the side of my studies, and then shipping them back was just a nightmare.
I can imagine that's quite expensive as well. And
Yeah, I mean, I took them off the stretchers, rolled them up, and put them in a ski bag.
really,
Um, but
wow, invaluable paintings in the ski bag.
yeah, well, I think a lot of people do that because the paintings are so big that shipping costs are just outrageous.
Yeah.
So half the series of paintings was, you know, images from Florence, and then a few.
And did your, I don't know if colleagues is the right word, but I suppose fellow students know that I mean, whilst studying, you were also this kind of like a superstar back in the UK.
Well, so I'd moved to Charles Cecil, which is a very like traditional life drawing atelier, and they didn't want to know, like, because yeah, because the paintings I was doing weren't the style that they wanted you to be, perfecting, and they didn't want to know about your like out of atelier achievements. Yeah, yeah.
What were they what were they hoping to achieve, I guess, there? What was the style that they were going for?
It was very, God, I'm about to forget the name. Sargent-esque. Um, and like Rembrandt, like
Okay,
very
much more kind of traditional.
yeah, just very. It is traditional.
Renaissance,
Yeah.
that kind of quite photorealistic, or
Yes, but it was it was done like with size drawing. So you had a plumb line, and you'd measure the life model, and it had to be done in in their technique of like the outline, then the shading. Whereas I paint in sections, so Charles would come round and tell me to restart, or just constantly telling me off for the way that I was drawing, which I found quite annoying. But yeah.
what were the learnings that you took from it eventually, or
Well, I wanted to learn the like great draftsmanship, because I think that's important for when you explore and go elsewhere with your style. I think it's important to have like the basics embedded.
is it right to call them rules, or
Yeah, I guess so. Well, he would definitely call them
He would call them
rules.
rules.
Yeah,
he likes sticking to the rules,
definitely.
whereas you were breaking them? How long do you usually spend on a painting? Notoriously, some of the most famous painters, I think I'm right in saying, paint over them what may have been a masterpiece in sort of, I don't, who knows what was going on, but is this something you find yourself ever doing? Or there's two questions there, I appreciate, but maybe let's kick off with the how long do you spend on painting?
They usually take me a month. It depends on the size, but
Yes.
this size, so 2 meters by 150. That'll take me a month. It depends how many people are in it, though. They take me the longest. But in terms of painting over them, it's rare that I will discard a painting because I spend so much time thinking about the painting before I start it and planning it out and imagining it on the canvas. And I think the way that I paint, I know what it's going to look like.
You do, okay.
So it's not really, it's not a surprise. I've really planned it. So
I was going to ask whether does it ever surprise you when you look at it, stand back, and but no, not really. And you planned it so much that.
Well, kind of. I mean, a few times there's like, I will put the colour. Don't want to say wrong, but it's different.
Yeah.
And I prefer that, and I like those sort of like chance, almost mistakes that happen.
Definitely.
I want them to happen more. I think I'm going to lean into that a bit more.
Kind of spontaneous mistakes and whatnot. Yeah, that's something which I feel many artists strive for, but it's a hard thing to
It's so exciting when they happen.
plan spontaneity, right? I mean, and so you mentioned that you learnt, or quoting, I learned to see life from an artist's perspective at a very young age. I think you've kind of spoken about that, but I'm curious, in I suppose more of the present, what is life from an artist's perspective, and are you sort of constantly in the state, or can you switch out of it?
I don't think it's ever something you can ever like switch off from, but it's funny that you're quoting back to me because it makes me realize I need to think about the things I say before they come out my mouth. I don't know what life from an artist's perspective really is. I guess it's just the way that you see the world, and you just notice a lot, I think.
Very observant.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're sort of always looking for that next painting, or?
Definitely, yeah.
Right.
I don't ever have even a few hours of like off from in between painting to painting.
Really?
And I'm so agitated if I don't have something planned afterwards. It's almost stressful when the painting is coming to an end because I need to have the next one on the go. And I did have a week where I hadn't planned the next painting, so I ended up painting on my chest of drawers instead.
Is that
Yeah, my circus lady on the horse.
Did you paint? Was it yellow before as well, or the whole thing?
No, there was blue before.
Looks great. Looks great.
Thank you.
Do you ever are you ever sort of like wandering around, for example, and think, oh, this would be an amazing painting, and then do you capture that there and then on your phone, or have there been times where I guess you're not able to capture it?
Yeah, so usually it's when I'm out and about with somebody and you just sort of, the moment like freezes and I think, okay, I have to get them back into that pose. So I'm just like, wait, pause. And I quickly get my phone out and just take loads of photos of them. And then usually I end up collaging two of the photos together to get that same thing that sort of freezes in the thing that froze before in my mind.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Even though it's like the slightest difference, but it just...
Yeah, interesting. I didn't know that, because I mean, yeah, there's always a kind of motion, and that's definitely very like apparent in the work. I say that being sat in Emilia's studio, kind of observing it all. Is there a piece of music you associate with kind of turning off, I guess, or switching off?
Yeah, well, I'd say, I think I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but Anemone by the Brian Jonestown Massacre.
By the Brian Jonestown Massacre.
Yeah, it's like, it's a sort of, it's quite slow and easy to listen to. But I mean, as I said, like, I don't think you ever switch out of this. So it's something that it's a song that I've never really got bored with. I listen to it a lot, depending. in any emotion.
Any state,
Yeah, in
yeah.
any state.
Wonderful. Again, I very much looking forward to listening to that as well now. Going on the artist perspective and life as an artist. But do you think there's ever a need for an artist to be controversial to be successful? Or
I I think that would be sad if you had to be, controversial to be successful. And I mean, like, I would strive to be someone, my work to be similar to David Hockney in a sense of the way that he's always changing, like he's always reinventing himself. Whereas if you think about someone like Damien Hirst, who is probably considered to be controversial,
yeah,
he had some great ideas, and now look at his stuff. I mean, it's appalling.
it's dots.
The dots, which he doesn't even do himself.
No, and there's dots, and it's a lot of them, and they're very big.
Yeah, I just think his tanks were great. The animals in them. I don't know. I mean, I absolutely love Tracy Emin, who is, I'd say she's controversial. She exposes herself.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think you need to be controversial to be.
And correct me if I'm wrong again, but Tracy Emin's, I don't know if maybe not her first piece, but the piece that really brought her into spotlight was The Bed, which was a not an exhibition, but a real life
Installation, I suppose. Yeah.
Thank you. Is that something you've considered going down, or?
Well, yes, I do think about that kind of thing a lot. I want to do I have an installation in mind that I want to do, but I don't know. I just, yeah, it's a hard one. But I think what's so great about the bed is, everybody, it says so much about her, like every tiny detail that's on the floor, like every bit of mess. And we've all like been in that state where our room is just a bombshell. I mean, obviously hers was a lot more extreme than that. But you can tell so much about someone even just by like the way that their duvet is like creased on their bed, just by the way they sleep.
Yeah, fascinating. And you said she's kind of like one of your favorite artists, right? Are there any other works that you're particularly drawn to?
Her tent of Everyone I've Ever Slept With, I loved that.
Oh yes, yeah.
And her recent show at White Cube.
Attended.
I attended the preview dinner. Yes.
Did you meet her?
She followed me on Instagram after that, and we texted for a bit. And I was meant to go up to see her in Margate, but I had to leave the opening early because I know, but I'm sure I will meet her.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll maybe. To someone wanting to become an artist today, what advice do you wish you'd? I suppose what advice would you have? But I guess maybe another way of framing it is, what advice do you wish you'd been told as a 16, 17-year-old? Maybe you tell your younger self.
Well, so one of my art teachers, the one who it took a while to, you know, get on his good side.
Oh yeah, Cecil.
No, no.
Oh,
Well, his name was Chris Kenny. He was my teacher at Fine Arts. No, that's fine. That was Charles Cecil you were talking about, but that was that was later on in life. So yeah, when I was 16, 17, my art teacher at Fine Arts was, when I was leaving, he said to me that he's never really said it before, apparently, but I had what it took to be an artist, and I think hearing that from him gave me so much confidence. And I think really, unless you're a Nepo, you have to be really driven, and you have to want to paint every day. Like, it's not rocket science, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting to hear. Hearing that from someone you really respect does mean the world.
Yeah, it does. It really makes a difference.
So, you've spoken about offline, I suppose, about Freeze and New York being two places which you'd love to, I suppose, exhibit and go to. What is it about both that excites you? Maybe starting with Freeze.
Yeah, freeze. I think what I love about art fairs is that not only is it a day literally dedicated to art, when I go, I like it excites me so much how many people are there and like wanting to look at all this art. Like there's so many art lovers out there, which I obviously don't see because I'm alone in my studio. So when I do spend the day at Freeze, yeah, it just like fills you with like so much excitement that all these people are wanting to go out and look at the art.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. I remember going to Freeze for the first time. Again, but probably I was 16 and
Really, that
seeing.
young?
Yeah, I think I was on a school trip actually. Very
A
lucky.
school trip?
Well, no, it's in Freeze in London, right? Yeah. It was a crazy school trip now I mentioned, but and I saw this piece of art, and I took a photo, and it has never shamelessly, but it's been my screensaver ever since.
Really?
By a guy called Urs Fisher, and it's amazing. Do you know his work? But well, it was a triptych, and I don't know the name of it, and I really struggled to. It took me about a year or two to find remember, well, not really remember, but I only took a photo of the painting, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I searched, and it was basically three large I suppose they're mirrors. And on the first one, he'd painted this setting of a kind of living room, and then on the second one, he'd rubbed off some of the paint, and then the third one, he kind of rubbed it. But so by the third one, you could hardly tell it was initially a living room, but it was a lot of the shapes and technique, and yeah, I like.
Or painted on a mirror?
Yeah, I mean, you can see your reflection on the last one, but in the first one, it's all just painted over, so you would never know. But yeah,
It's still your screensaver?
it is still my screensaver. Yeah, you can. I don't know. My phone's up there. You can see me in the reflection, like.
Yeah, yeah, there's that classic at Freeze every year, there's that mirror. Ugh, I don't know what artist does it, or even, yeah, it says time across the top,
Okay, yeah.
and it's like the sort of Instagram piece.
Right. It was in, when is it? I guess it's in Regent's Park.
It's in October. It was good this year.
it?
A lot more figurative stuff.
Was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I always have to go back multiple times to take it all in because
It's big.
yeah, I feel like you've got to map it out to see everything.
And you mentioned New York as well. Does that what excites you about New York?
I think I used to be excited by New York. I think the art world there is different. I say this like I know, I mean, I'm still so naive about what the art world is. But I think, yeah, New York's probably got a bit more to offer in terms of the art world, the galleries out there. I think that from what I'm seeing, a lot of the art people live there.
The art people.
Yeah, a different breed.
Good, yeah, no, good breed to be a part of, I think. Okay, here's the closing song question about the song that you have on repeat at the moment. What are you listening to?
I have two. Is that okay?
That is perfectly okay.
So one is by Mazzy Star called Roseblood. And the other, I've been listening to loads of Alice Phoebe Lou at the moment. Do you know her?
No.
Oh, you're going to have so much fun after this, listening to all the songs. Alice Phoebe Lou, yeah.
Are they a new band, or are they?
I, relatively, I think.
Right.
She's quite young,
Oh, shit,
I
okay.
think. Oh my God.
No,
But honestly, any of her songs, I usually have about like 10 songs on shuffle.
yeah. And do you listen to them whilst you're painting? Is that something, or
Yeah, I do, but it really depends what mood I'm in. Like when I wake up, I'll come into the studio, and then I either put the radio on and I put Heart 70s on.
Heart 70s?
Yeah. Or I have a podcast on, or I shuffle songs, but I've been listening to music less and less recently, and I use music as the time when I'm out of.
Yes, yeah. Switch off and
Yeah.
distract yourself, I guess.
Yeah, well, actually, kind of the opposite. I feel like when you listen to music, it's so intense, so it kind of takes me away from painting sometimes.
We're on to the quickfire round. Are you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. If you could steal a wardrobe from any celebrity or artist, who would it be?
It would have to be C.S. Lewis's wardrobe from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Wow. Okay. Who is an underrated artist?
I discovered her at Freeze, Paulina Olowska. Um, I love her stuff. She like blurs or blends the outline of her figures so well into the scene, and I really need to take that on board with my stuff. But yeah, I only discovered her recently, and I really love her stuff. And also, there's one painting by Danny Fox. It's his Bathers painting that I just think is so phenomenal. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Fashion ick.
Anything pastel.
Ooh, is that because you relate it to painting? Actually,
I'm starting to think that I related to my penny board when I was younger.
That's actually what came to mind as well.
Really? Yeah.
Penny boards. Were you quite the skater?
God, no. Well, I think felt I was at the time.
Yeah, they were pretty cool at the time. Actually, I have to say.
Yeah, I just don't like pastel. Mint green, I hate.
I'm glad I didn't wear any mint green. Yeah. Whew. Okay. Do you have a signature look, or something people recognize you for, not much specificity?
I always have like a bit of fabric or like a silk scarf attached to my handbags.
Nice.
I think that
Have I asked what makes someone stylish? Is that?
you haven't.
No. Okay.
I feel like it just depends on the way that they wear the clothes. It's like the way you move in it. It has to look like a second skin. It's almost more important than what they're wearing.
A lot of or the people you capture they have a look or a style to them. So is that, I guess that's from.
Well, a lot of the time I dress them.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, it depends. Obviously, this is a self-portrait we're looking at, but yeah, a lot of like when there's shoots, like pre-planned shoots, I'll always dress them, like the one I'm doing at the moment.
With your own clothes? Or?
Yeah, with my own.
Do you ever buy stuff to then dress?
Yes.
That's fun, actually. Not having to buy just for yourself, but
Yeah.
to style other people.
It is so fun. I love, like, I was doing a circus series and I bought a lot of, I don't want to say military wear, but along that lines, sort of like ringleader type stuff, a lot of like top hats and things.
And were these from like vintage shops?
eBay, yeah. And antique shops.
Do you have any antique shop recommendations in London or anything like that?
Gosh, not in London. There is one called Think Vintage Warehouse. Is it even in London? I don't know. It's sort of like south, near Surrey.
Nice.
But they have a pretty good selection.
Okay, I think I've asked which artist painter's catching your eye at the moment.
Well, if you want a sort of older one, I'd say
Yes.
Vuillard or Degas I'm into at the moment.
Awesome. You wake up, open your wardrobe, and see that there is only one outfit in there for eternity. What would that outfit be?
It's my staple outfit at the moment.
Okay.
It's a French 1930s white trousers. Those are the trousers. When I bought them, she said they were what men used to wear at Oxford.
Wow.
And then the top is like a 1930s, 40s black jacket with a little tie around the waist.
Very cool.
And my granny's vintage Gucci loafers. Yeah.
That was the final quickfire question, and I suppose thank you so much for.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun.